Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to continue working on our deathmatch game, our super deathmatch game. So just to reiterate, or just to kind of cover where we've been, we have our lighting, we have props. I've added some new props in here. All of these were free from the asset store. I just found some cool props in the asset store and I added them in. And in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to add on to our game. We're basically going to make it so that we're not this floating ghost that just kind of hovers around our level. We're going to add in a first-person character controller, and we'll actually add a gun to our character that we can shoot. We won't actually be doing we won't be shooting any bullets yet. What we're going to do is we're going to just play a sound effect to make it sound like it's shooting. And then we're going to set up a very simple ray casting system that we're going to need later whenever we're shooting our enemies. So ray casting is something that we could really get into a lot of depth. It's not ray tracing, by the way. It's ray casting. Essentially, you just shoot an invisible line out in front of an object, and then it bounces off of the nearest object and then tells you, what direction it is and how far it is. We're going to set that up. Okay, so let's see. What do we have here? All right, first thing we need to do is we need to bring in our... We need to bring in the standard assets first-person character controller. Now, there are other character controllers out there that you could use, but for my money, the standard assets character controller is fine. It does everything we need. Take a sip of my coffee here. So what we're going to do is let's go into the Unity asset store here. Let's click Open Package. Oh, no, not Open Package Manager. Sorry. Let's go search online. And then in here, we're going to search for standard assets. Okay, which I already have. So, you probably already have them as well, tied to your account. If you already have them, then you can go to Open Package Manager, find the standard assets, and then I've already downloaded them for this project, so I don't have to do that. I'm going to click Import. Now, for this step, it's incredibly important that we only import the stuff we need, right? We don't need to import the entire standard assets package because really there's not, it's not everything. There's some older scripts in there that cause some issues, plus there are a lot of files in here that we don't need. So we can get rid of sample scenes. We don't need that. We can get rid of 2D. We don't need that. We can get rid of... Yeah, let's get rid of cameras. So for characters, we want to keep the first-person character, obviously, but we can get rid of rollerball. We can get rid of the third-person character. We want to keep the cross-platform input. Let's keep editor as well. But let's get rid of water. We don't want water. We just want the editor so that we can utilize the cross-platform input. If we include water, it's going to cause some errors in our script. So get rid of water. We can get rid of effects as well, and environment, and fonts, and particle systems, and physics materials, and prototyping. Utility, let's keep that, but there's one that we want to get rid of, the simple activator menu. I found that causes some errors in the game as well, so get rid of that. We can get rid of vehicles, and I believe that's it. So we're only keeping the first-person character controller, cross-platform input, editor, but in editor we're going to get rid of water, and utility, but we're going to get rid of the simple activator menu. So that should give you everything you need without throwing any errors in your program. So I'm going to click Import and see what happens. Okay, it looks like it's imported. I have no console errors here, so far so good. So I'm going to go into console or standard assets here. I'm going to go to characters and first-person character. Let's go to prefabs. All right, so I want to put a first-person character controller just right in here. Now he's kind of halfway through the floor, so I'm going to bring him up a little bit. Now I can already tell he's a bit big for our level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink him down. I'm going to go to scale. I'm going to shrink him down to 0.7 on all axes so that he's a bit smaller, and then I will drop him down here. Okay. Now let's see. It looks like he's looking at the wall there, which is fine. He can just be pointed at the wall if we want. Or we can rotate him on the X. Nope, not the X. Sorry. On the Y. We can rotate him on the Y so that he's looking at the level. That's a little bit better. All right. Now, let's hit play and go ahead and try him out. Okay. So we got our sound effects. I can walk around. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Cool. Now, you'll notice that I can walk right through my props here because I haven't set up colliders. I haven't set up colliders on any of those objects. You're going to want to do that before the game is over, before you're finished building the game, because you want to make sure that you can't walk through, say, like the sandbag walls and stuff. And your props are all different. You're going to have different things in your scenes. But like, for example, I wouldn't want to be able to walk through this. I want to be able to walk through the tunnel, but not through the tunnel like that. You see what I mean? So I'll have to set up a collider around that object. But anyway, yeah, that's up to you. I'm not going to do it in this video, but you already know how to add colliders to objects, so we're good there. Okay. Next thing is we need to find a gun. It's not a very good first-person shooter if you do not have a gun. So let's find a gun. For that, we're going to go to the asset store. And you can just type gun. So there's going to be tons of guns here. Again, you want to make sure it's set to 0 because there are some, that are pretty expensive. So I played around with a sci-fi gun, which is pretty cool. There's some machine guns, futuristic handguns, all of this stuff. And these are all free. All you have to do is just bring them right into your game. I'm actually going to bring in this. Let's bring this futuristic handgun. I want to take a look at it. Come on. Okay. That looks pretty cool. I like it. All right. So I'm going to bring that in, add it to my assets. All right. So then I have my sci-fi futuristic handgun. I will download it and import. So it looks like this is a pretty simple package. It just comes with a sci-fi handgun prefab. It also comes with a script, which I'm curious about. But anyway, let's import those assets. Looks like my my encoding is getting overloaded. So we'll give it just a second. All right, cool. We should be back to normal. Alrighty, let's see. We have an issue with the main camera. So I've removed the main camera from my scene. It didn't interfere with my character controller. So this is causing an error, but that's fine. We can clear that out. We don't need to worry about that. Okay, so let's find our gun. Was it vertex field? No, those are barrels. Nope. Mobility arts, maybe? There we go. Alrighty. So then we have our sci-fi handgun. Okay. Nope, that's the... So I believe that's the prefab right here. All right. So then we'll just drag that in. Okay. So now we have our handgun. Here's the interesting part, though. We need our handgun to be attached to our main character. Okay. So I'm going to drag my sci-fi handgun onto the first-person controller to make it a child of that, so that whenever we move around, the gun moves around with us. Now, I want to select that controller so I can see, kind of where the bounds are. I want to start rotating my gun and putting my gun in the scene. Let's go to the game view because it'll be a bit easier. And now I want to start bringing my gun up and out. And okay, that's looking good. Maybe rotate a bit here. All right. Okay, and it's just, you know, fine-tuning, finding the right spot for it to be. But, you know, that's good enough. Let me go ahead and play the game and see if my gun follows my character. And it does. And we get a little bit of that bob. And the gun's kind of just floating there by itself. So there are a couple things we can do. I believe if I make the sci-fi handgun a child of the first-person character, that should reduce the amount of bob that we have. Yeah, there we go. So now that it's not bobbing around with my character, which is what I want. Okay. Cool. And again, you can play around with different kinds of guns, different, you know, all kinds of stuff. All right, so believe it or not, we're actually getting pretty close to being finished with this part of it. What I need to do now is I need to create a sound effect whenever I click the mouse button, right? I want to indicate somehow that I'm firing the weapon. So I've given you some assets. We have a fire gun script, a pistol shot, and a player casting script. So I've given you these character assets. I've already imported them into my scene. I put the gunshot in a sound effects folder that I've created, and I've created a scripts folder for the other two. The fire gun script, let's go ahead and place that on the sci-fi handgun here. And it's looking for a gunfire sound effect. Okay, so we're going to take this sound effect and apply it to the sci-fi handgun as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this sci-fi handgun audio controller. Oh, so the sci-fi handgun audio source is going to be attached to that. All right, so let's go ahead and play it again and see if, oh, it played. Oh, I have it set to play on awake, which we shouldn't. So now you can see whenever I click the button, it plays a sound effect. But I'm really just firing blanks. I'm not actually shooting anything yet. But that's okay. We're going to handle that you know, after we get our enemies in, because there's no point in actually shooting bullets if we can't see the effect of those bullets on the enemies, and we don't have enemies yet. So we'll do that after we add the enemies. For right now, it's working exactly the way we want it to. We could add some, you know, animations or something to it to make it, give it some feedback whenever we fire the gun. That's, you know, you could do that. It's just, that's a little bit more advanced than I want to get into. Most guns, for example, this guy right here, right? This comes with everything, every individual piece of this is animated or is set up separately. So trigger cover, gun clip, you know, all that stuff. We can animate each of these things individually. Like, for example, we can actually take the whole thing and rotate it up whenever we shoot and play that animation in the script. But again, that's not something I want to really get into for this. Now, the last thing I want to do is we need to set up a raycast system. Now, raycasting, like I said before, it's essentially just it's going to shoot out an invisible line just right in front of it, and then it'll reflect back, and then it'll basically give you a distance, right? So I've written a very simple raycasting script here that's going to just essentially tell you how far away from other objects you are. This is going to help us to set up our shooting script later on in the course. So we need to attach this thing, but I don't want to attach it to my first-person controller, because if I do, it's going to start casting our rays from the center of our little wireframe cylinder here. And that's not what I want. I want it to actually cast our rays from the tip of the gun, but I don't want to attach it to the gun either, because then it's going to cast from the center of the gun. So I'm going to create a new empty object. I'm Let's do this. Create empty. And I'm going to, oh, hello. And I'm going to call this, let's rename it, cast thrower or caster. Doesn't matter, right? We'll call it caster. All right. And then we will add the player cast script onto it. Okay. Now we want to set the caster in the proper spot. So right now it's kind of hovering there. We don't want it there. We want to come over here and we want to come down. We want to kind of put it right on the tip of the barrel of the gun. Okay. And over just a little bit. All right, perfect. So now when I play the game with this caster object selected, notice that I have this toTarget variable. That variable will update with a distance between us and the thing that we're pointing at. All right, so let's go ahead and play. Okay, so notice how as I rotate, it gives me a distance between us and the wall. So for example, between here and the wall, the far wall, we're looking at a distance of about 9. But between here and this wall, we're looking at a difference about 2. And as we walk around the level, you can see that it updates as we're pointing at objects. Okay. Now there's one other thing that we can do to make this a little bit easier. Every first-person shooter I've ever played has some kind of cursor, right? So to do that, we just need to add a user interface element. So let's create a new game object. Let's make a UI and let's make an image. All right. So a UI image. Let's back up a lot so we can see what we've got, what we're working with here. Oh, actually, let's just double click on the canvas. Why are we... Okay, there we go. So see, we have this square here, right? We're going to use this square as our, this square is going to be our cursor, right? All we have to do is just make it much, much smaller. So I'm going to do 0.2, maybe even smaller than that, 0.1 by 0.1. Okay, so that's going to be in the dead center of our screen, and it's going to just be a white square that when we play our game will act as our cursor for our gun. Okay, we can even make it smaller than that probably. So let me actually make that smaller. So 0.07 by 0.07. Let's test that out, see what that looks like. Okay, that's even better. All right, now I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to turn off that that play on awake sound because that's bugging me. All right. So there we go. We have a first-person character controller now. We have a character that we can walk around in our scene. Oh, that has a collider around it. We have a gun. We can shoot and play a sound effect. We have a cursor on our screen, and we can tell how far away from other objects we are. So that's pretty much all we need to do for this part of the project. Next, we're going to start adding enemies into the game, give us something to shoot, and then after that, we're going to actually implement the rest of the systems we need for this game to actually work properly. So until then, I'll see you next time. Have fun.